say
we're
that?
all in agreement that it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, I'm for them. I just want the process done fairly. So
Okay,
Yeah, we're good.
okay.
Is there any water anywhere? There's none down there.
Ms. Ray, we have water.
There's none down there.
I will do it, I will do it. Good. Everyone.
In the corner again.
I know, but I do feel like I'm backed up. I got back up. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to call our Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education called board meeting for 12/19 today at 5 o'clock to order. If you would, put all your electronic devices on silent. We hope to be sure and quick this afternoon. We are on number 2, which is the adoption of the agenda. What is the pleasure of the board?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Holmes and a second by Ms. Cook. All in favor signify by raising your hand. It'll be 5-0. And then we will move then to our consent agenda items. What is the pleasure?
So move, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. McDonald, a second by Mr. Holmes. All in favor signify by raising your hand.
I just want to have a little discussion on the consent agenda.
Okay, you have a question?
It's more of it's a statement.
Okay.
I just want to say it's good to see that Adam will be getting an addition to his department, communication aid. So we're excited to be able to support the communications department as they are charged with telling the story of the school district. So just wanted to give a shout out to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, we will then move into our presentation.
Did we take a vote?
I thought we already did the vote, and then, because the discussion came after we voted. But anyway, if not, all in favor signify. The 5-0.
Great.
House presentation discussion, House Bill 581.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, board members. It's good to see you this afternoon. I will be brief. I wanted to bring to your attention as we prepare to embark upon the holiday break, some things that will take place immediately upon our return. So if you would, I've provided for you a draft version of our opt-out schedule. This is in relation to House Bill 581. As you know, I've been talking to you, talking with you, talking about this legislation, talking with legal, talking with GSBA, GSSA, ACCG representatives, anyone and everyone who has knowledge about this particular legislation. But we are at the point now, I'll remind you that per the law, the clock starts officially on January 1st. It ends on March 1st. With either a resolution provided to the Secretary of State on or before that date, if we decide to opt out, or we really don't do much more than that if we decide to opt in. I provided to you in my most recent update, the guidance that I have been following, which basically indicates that we have to have 3 public hearings. In the interest of trying to maintain some degree of normalcy with those public hearings, I provided for you what those hearings could look like without changing the meeting dates, whether it be a work session or a business meeting. For example, the first public hearing could also occur on January 14th, which is also our work session date. Rather than going immediately into the work session, I would propose that we go to the public hearing, which typically lasts about 20 to 30 minutes, and then immediately following the hearing, we would go into our work session. So that's the way that you would see that. I've also included the language of the advertisement. I shared with you previously that there are specifics per the legislation that advertisement must meet, and we have to do all of those things not before January 1, but knowing that when we return, we have the business of operating schools as well as these types of legal matters. And so I wanted to get out in front, but give you a visual of what that would look like so that you would know whether you accept my recommendation to opt out or decide to opt in. We will be within the time frame specified by the law to do such a thing. Does that make sense? Are there any questions that I might be able to answer for you, or any clarity that I might be able to provide for you relative to the proposed public hearing dates that I have on the sheet in front of you, or any other necessary information that you may need between now and January 14th?
Dr. Simmons, would it be prudent just to mention in this setting, or should we wait about the implications of opting in or opting out?
So, thank you for that question, Mr. Holmes. The primary implication would be the loss of revenue. There are calculations that are abound. I've shared with you a sample of what that could look like. Our calculations mimic a loss of anywhere from $1 to $2 million per year, for however long this legislation is in place, which is the driving factor as to why I would recommend to the board that we opt out of this legislation. I will remind you that this is not a rolling decision. You either opt in or you opt out, but you have to do that and declare that no later than March 1st. And so, again, while I understand the feelings behind it, as the entity responsible for educating our students, the local revenue is an integral part of our budgeting process, and the cap would make it even more difficult for us to meet the needs, particularly as it relates to staffing or educational services in our school system.
Any other questions?
It's not a question, more of it is a question. So with the opting in and opting out, it is true that this is not, it doesn't matter what other municipalities or governmental entities decide to do, that it is totally separate. So with the actual floss, that if in the event there was a sunny side of the city of Griffin decides to opt out, then that changes for that particular municipality, that particular government. But in what the school board of education decides to do, there are no implications as it relates to what other municipalities decide to do with the opting in and opting out of House Bill 581.
That is affirmed.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing else from me, Mr. Chair.
All right. We will then move on to our legal services. Board members, you saw the two proposals that were submitted. Had discussions with most of you about those. So what is the pleasure of this board?
So moved to accept legal services from Smith, Welch, Webb, and White.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Holmes. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make it known when, and I shared this with another colleague that asked, for me, it wasn't that Smith, Welch, Webb, and White was doing anything wrong, that they are a well-capable firm of many attorneys that have certain expertise that our school district has benefited from. In everything that we're doing, we just want to make sure that there's a fair and equitable process. And so it was never that, Arsentel Brown was against Smith, Welch, Webb, and White. It's just that I want it to be a more equitable process, and I'm happy to make the motion to continue the work that they're doing and the support that they give our school district. So tell your partners over there, Mrs. O'Neill, that we greatly appreciate them.
Could I put a point of information out, Mr.
Sure.
Chair?
Yes.
I do want to make sure everybody is aware that we don't have to put it out for bid. That's not something that we have to. And I know and I understand where your mindset was for us being fair and equitable in prosecuting the business. But I just want to make sure all board members know and all constituents know that's not something that we have to put out. for bid.
And to that, it is something that we have to put out for bid, but the elected members of the board decided years ago when we first did this test that is what we would do to be fair and equitable. But to your point, no, we do not have to, but anytime you're dealing with the public's money, you want to make sure that that the information is out there for those taxpayers, as their taxpayer dollars is very helpful in us being able to pay the fees that our attorneys do. So, no, it does not have to be out there, but we are in the business of doing things fair and equitably in our school district. So I am glad that the Board of Education decided to put it out there, and so that we could look and see the information presented, which, you know, at the end of the day, we are still going with Smith, Welch, Webb, and White.
All right.
Mr. Doss, I have a comment if it's
Okay.
appropriate.
Sure.
I just wanted to, what's the word? I just wanted to reflect on what Mr. Holmes and Mr. Brown have just said. I totally agree with what they just said, their sentiments. And I'm totally impressed with Smith and Welch. I know last Thursday when we were in Atlanta for a function with two of your attorneys, I left there feeling very represented and very cool about the job that you and your firm do for us. And I just wanted to publicly thank you, Elizabeth, and your firm for what you do. And thank you to Mr. Brown's comments and thank you to Mr. Holmes' comments, but I totally support Smith Welch continuing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I want to publicly thank Smith, Welch, Webb, and White for the exemplary way they have represented the Griffin-Spalding County School Board. We never have to worry about any issue with them, and I agree with Ms. McDonald. After the meeting in Atlanta, I felt just extremely proud to have them representing us because I felt that they handled that in a very professional manner, and it was very forthcoming for us to see how great that representation is. So kudos to you all.
Only thing I add, Elizabeth, you need to, if we ever have to go back to the Richard B. Russell building, you need to check on that check-in about taking our shoes off and everything.
Oh my God, that was terrible.
You know, that was traumatic to me.
They had his picture up front. They wouldn't let him in.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Doss because they booted my car,
Oh, that was interesting.
put two immobilization devices on it after I went upstairs and paid, but I told the guy it took us 30 minutes to get through security. Security in a federal courthouse is 1,000 times more than TSA in Atlanta, the Atlanta airport. So I might have some added expenses on my expense report. Dr. Simmons, are you listening?
I was. He was trying to figure out why you had what you had.
I'm trying to get the money back, but they haven't contacted me back yet, so there might be, my expense report might be a little over what.
Pay before you park.
Before you leave the parking lot, for
Thank
sure.
you, Mr. Doss, for hanging in with me, and Ms. Cook.
All right, board members, we do have one item of information to be given to you in executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal of periodic evaluation. And so it won't take long, and we'll stay within Mr. Holmes's 15 minutes that he needed for this meeting tonight. So with that, I would entertain a motion for executive session.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Brown and a second by Ms. McDonald. All in favor signify by raising your hand. All right, we are in executive session.